Good evening, students. Today we're going to be talking about the two things that solidified the final border for Texas. First things first, let's talk about the U.S.-Mexican War. Now, the U.S.-Mexican War has three big contributing factors. We've got border disputes, and border disputes, that one was big because we have two different ideas to where the border for Texas is in the south. Mexico thinks that it is that Nueces River. And the United States thinks it's way over here at the Rio Grande. The Rio Grande is what it is today. So if we have these two and we can't figure out which one is which, we got the Nueces and then the Rio Grande. And if we're sitting here looking at the two, it's not really going to work without some kind of conflict coming up because everything in between is kind of disputed. They can't decide which one is which. So we have border disputes first. We also have the fact that U.S. annexed Texas. And that was a big deal because Santa Anna basically told Polk that if you annex Texas, that's essentially a declaration of war. And Polk says, okay, we're going to do it anyway. So they end up with Texas, and that's another big factor that leads to the war. And all of this is because of a concept we know as manifest destiny. And manifest destiny, we have a whole video on that, but basically it's the idea that the United States feels like they have this God-given right to go all the way from one coast to the other. And in order to get there, they have to go through Mexico. So this has been weighing on for a while, and finally, the U.S.-Mexican War begins because this man named Zachary Tyler goes way down here, right next to Mexico, and just camps out until Mexican troops eventually fire on him. At that point, that's when we get President Polk. He gets pretty angry. And he says that U.S. or American blood has been shed on American soil. But really, whenever you look at it, is that American soil? Well, some people say yes, some people say no. It's that whole idea that this area is disputed. Nobody really owns it completely. So Mexico thinks it's theirs, and they feel like they've been invaded. That's why they fire. So the U.S.-Mexican War goes on, and the United States wins. They win, and eventually they have Mexico sign the Treaty of Guadalupe, Hidalgo. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo does two big things. First, the southern border of the United States is now at the Rio Grande. Not the Nueces. And this is big because that's kind of what Polk was going for. He was aiming for that, but he was also aiming for this other place. You see, before the war starts, Polk actually sends somebody to try to buy California from Mexico, and Mexico says no. But in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, Polk gets the Mexican cession, which is California, and then a little bit more. But it's that whole chunk of land next to California, Arizona, New Mexico, little bits of Nevada, and other states. But the Mexican cession, he ends up buying that for $15 million when he originally offered 30. So the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo does these two things, as well as ending the U.S.-Mexican War. An easy way to remember that this is the treaty, well, you've got the U.S.-Mexican War, and then you've got the Treaty of Guadalupe-Hidalgo. So it begins and ends with a dash. The other thing that finalizes Texas's border is the Compromise of 1850. And as we said in class, we'll talk more about this compromise when we get to the Civil War. But for now, let's talk about what it does for Texas. You see, before the compromise, Texas's border looked a little bit different. It went all the way up here, and then it went up. The Rio Grande went much farther than it did, and it continues to go this direction. But with the Compromise of 1850, Texas had a huge problem. And we all know what that huge problem is, and that's its debt. See, it was in the red big time. It owed over $10 million. So, how did it fix that? Well, the Compromise of 1850 let Texas sell all of this land, so New Mexico and then some, for $10 million. This $10 million makes us debt-free. So all Texans can be real happy. Yay! And what ends up happening after that is that we will finally set the border for Texas. So these two things help to shape Texas the way it looks today. If it weren't for that, Texas would look somewhat like, or if it weren't for the U.S.-Mexican War, Texas would look something like this, because that's the new etchus, so this would be Texas. And if it weren't for the Compromise of 1850, Texas would also have all of this land. So Texas looks like it does today for these two things, the U.S.-Mexican War and the Compromise of 1850. Have a wonderful night, and check in a little bit, and there will also be a video posted on immigration. Good luck on your test tomorrow, students.